clearly their outreach was missing. And what was missing even more at that time was the sense of purpose that an advocate in an area like this should have about the thing that they are there to do. It didn't bother them that they had empty beds and that they were clearly missing completely 1/3 of the market. Didn't bother them. And as a result, I did two things. First, I asked the controller of the City of New York to audit their contract, which did in fact happen, and has caused Covenant House to significantly clean up their act to the point that they now participate with all our other groups, understand their failing, and have been making their best efforts to move forward in this area. But also, we went to the Commissioner of DYCD, and in this particular area, I will say that this city agency does care and is responsive. I don't feel that way about every city agency. And we said we need to set aside money to open up shelter beds for young people who identify as LGBTQ. And the next year, we added $1.2 million to the budget to do it. Ali Forney got its first city funding, and a number of other institutions have followed. Now, the good news, I guess, is that over the next couple of years, with a great deal of persistence, support from Councilman Gerson and the Speaker, we've managed to increase funding for shelter beds in the City of New York by $5.2 million. The bad news is that every year Mike Bloomberg cuts it. Now, that's worthy of a hit, that's true. Yes. All right. Now, you know, Mike Bloomberg prides himself on being a businessman, and you know, there are two things that you need to get your hand around on this. First of all, every child that's left on the street without a shelter bed is more likely to become HIV positive, is more likely to develop a mental health issue, is more likely to become a burden to the criminal justice system. The cost to the taxpayer of dealing with any one of those three things is more than the cost of a shelter bed. Think about it. So if you just for one moment cast compassion aside, forgetting that, no, these are somebody's children, right? And that just for that reason alone, we need to do better. It doesn't make sense from a financial point of view or a planning point of view. And the second thing is, when you ask the CBO to risk its future by going into a lease for space, and I will tell you there are rules and rules and rules on top of rules for what that space must look like if you're providing shelter beds. There are rules about what kind of staff you can hire. There are federal rules that are different from state rules, that are different from city rules. And if you're asking them to do all that, and then you can't promise them that the funding's going to be there, and next July, you're asking an awful lot. And I have had to, on more than one occasion, after putting this money in the budget, at the request of the Commissioner at DYCD, call an agency that we were giving money to and pledge that they would cut that money out of this budget over my big, fat, dead, bloody bottom. And that's the only way we're able to open those shelter beds. And I will tell you again, that money that was cut by the mayor in this budget for shelter beds will be put back, or I will be a dead man. One or the other, that is a commitment. On the floor of the council to remind people of that. I did it at the end of the meeting again today. When I stood up, my colleagues all assumed that I was going to talk about congestion pricing, and I'll give you a couple of minutes on that after I'm done with this. But, you know, I reminded everyone that tonight 3,800 kids could be sleeping on the street, and that the mayor would cut that money from the budget. And, you know, I understand we're going to have a very tough budget year. There's no doubt that the budget of the City of New York next year will be smaller than the budget of the City of New York is this year, maybe by $800 million, perhaps as much as $1 billion. But you do not balance the budget on the back of homeless children. That is something where I think we should all draw the line. I think it's important that organizations like this make it clear to their elected officials, make it clear to the mayor that this cut is not a budget cut, it's a cruel cut, and that's what it comes down to. Now,